one of the things we love is creating jobs and
Oh,
creating opportunity for people. You know, that's what's exciting. That's what actually gets me pumped up, is like, how many jobs can we create? How many opportunities can we create that'll put smoke up other people's chimneys?
yeah, clarity, man, that word. You know, I had a partner 3 or 4 years ago that was obsessed with that word. He talked about it. Seemed like it was, at times, the only thing he was clear on was that you need clarity. Like, he just was so obsessed with it. And it started to really rub off. And in our mastermind now that I run, I would say that's literally 75% of the work we do, is helping entrepreneurs and business owners get more clear. And I can say for myself, as just kind of a quick illustration, you know, I have an online education company. We, I was talking about, here's, how to thrive in the new digital economy. Here's alternative business models. Here's digital, I was kind of like dancing around the core with different, pieces of language and wordings. When I finally got clear about 6 months ago that what I'm doing, who I am, is I'm an education reformer. I'm disrupting establishment education. That clarity has opened so many doors. It's inflected our messaging. It's furthered our cultural growth. It's just like 2 words, reforming education or disrupting education. That clarity has, like, literally, I would say, multiplied the power of our business financially and in many other ways by at least 10x, like that word. So how do you take people who don't have clarity? I mean, clarity is easy to talk about in hindsight, but how do you help people navigate through the fog? Is there a process you can kind of quickly describe?
Oh yeah, there is a tremendous process, and it's really what we call, finding your Polaris point. And here's some things that I do just tactically. Would that be good for your listeners to actually get?
Yes, 100%, 100%.
Really good tactics on what we do. We do have some amazing. The book High Performing Habits by Brendon Burchard is a must read. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're a solopreneur, you're doing it. If that book is off the charts, so good.
I'm listening and I'm looking around for my copy. That's why I'm moving around.
So yeah, I mean, I've got one right here too.
There it is.
So right there, Coach.
I got mine.
That's it. So let me tell you why it's so good. Is it really talks about 6 habits, and the very first habit is to seek clarity. The next one is to generate energy. So nobody, what is it? When you show up in a room, do people, like, when you call or when somebody's calling you, what is it? Negative energy? Is that powerful? Like, really good business leaders, like, people thrive and want to be around them. And I bet you some of the guys that used to work with me knew, like, they'll say, dude, Randy, always, I always try to do that. It's like, what kind of energy do you bring to the world?
Yeah.
And then the other one is, like, how do you raise necessity? Like, how do you, like, for example, if you have a goal, there's a real strategy around raising necessity. So those are kind of the 3 first habits, and there's 3 more that you can get when you read the book. But the very, very first one is, like, what I do is I journal every single night. And for me, we got a lot of stuff happening. So much opportunity. But if you're overwhelmed, then you're under delivering. So if you want to get really, really, really dialed in and focused, what works for me is I actually journal I go through, like, so many of these. I journal every single night. I know exactly what I'm doing today. I don't waste a second. I don't even waste a minute of my life. And then I review it at the end of the night and say, how did I score myself on a scale of 1 to 10? Did I hit 80% of my goal? Did I hit, what can I improve, both physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, revenue-wise? Did I bring in the amount of revenue I wanted to bring in for the day? But that's what I do daily. So those daily habits, that helps me to stay on track with my energy. Most of the time people are, like, distracted or whatever because they don't know what they're doing, and they're waiting for somebody to tell them what to do. Take charge of your freaking life and get really clear on what you're going to do, so you learn how to also say no. And then you also raise necessity because you have certain things you have to do at a certain time frame, right?
Yeah.
So you're increasing your ability to execute. Just by journaling will increase your revenue and will increase the profitability for you and your family tenfold. I mean, I could go over statistics after statistics, but I will once a quarter spend a couple of days up in a cabin and I'll say, am I on course? And I always say, like, if I'm doing something that's not driving excitement and energy in my life, then I'm probably on the wrong path. Mm-hmm. So I spend a really, really good time each quarter reviewing my quarterly goals. And I've made this a habit over the last 5 years. I've been judicious about it for my life and the businesses that I own. And so I love life. I love every set. I mean, I've never been in a space, and maybe being in my mid 40s now and all the battles, and like, I'm actually a lot more patient with myself too, and knowing that things will come. And now I love educating and training people. That's what fills me up. It's like, dude, how many Jeff Lerner, who else could I take my skill set to and help them explode their business? That's what actually gets me excited more than anything in this world. So I'll work with a certain group of people to help them to do that. And that's what High Performance Institute is all about. We're working with huge corporations, teaching them these simple skills to help all of their employee base get even more productive in life. You know, I've kind of always been an entrepreneur my whole life. And I've always had that thought that if somebody else can do it, I can do it. And one of the things that my dad told me right when I was heading off to college, he said, Randy, if you don't have your own goals, somebody else will use you for theirs. And I'll never forget that when he shared that with me. And so I've always had in my mind, I want to be self-sufficient in my life. I want to be able to make my own money. I'm smart enough. I mean, I might not be smart enough, but I can find a way to do it, to be self-sufficient. And I think that's what I love about entrepreneurship, is that you can actually really, really learn not only to be self-sufficient, but to be highly, highly profitable, highly successful, and really love what you do because you're creating it with your own two hands. That's what I love about it. And that's really what we did. So.
Yeah. Amen to that. I'll be honest. I mean, I've been an entrepreneur. I started my first business at 16. So you were a few years ahead of me in your journey, but, failed at 16. I did not succeed in college, for the record. You got it together pretty quick. I would say I didn't really click. I mean, I was self-sufficient as a musician. I played piano, so I made that work. But in terms of starting an enterprise that could take on a life of its own, frankly, separate or at least interdependent with me, I didn't even get it until I was like 29, after 10 consecutive failures. So props to you for figuring it out so quickly. But to your point, I've never understood, and maybe it's just a wiring thing, but I've never understood not longing and needing the sense of creating your own life, building it yourself. Not like you said, what was it? What was that line you said? If you don't have your own goals, someone else will use you for theirs.
If you don't, honestly, like that seared, and that's actually one of my life mottos. And that's why I'm massive on goal setting, journaling, strategy, that if you don't have your own goals, somebody else will use you for theirs. So I want you to think about that. And that's where like pure joy comes from, creating things. Even if you fail, dude, you learn so much. Like, it's actually not a failure. It could be, you're just continuing to figure things out. You don't really fail until you stop. Right. So that's what I love about it. And I think that's what you love about it too. Think about like what drives fulfillment for you.
Yeah. I mean, what is a thing that costs you money and teaches you knowledge? Failure, education. So why can't we just call all failures education? They literally have the same characteristics, right? I'm so grateful. I dropped out of high school when I was 17 years old and began this incredible string of failures. And I know a lot more than a lot of people I know that have never failed.
100%.
So, okay. So you said junior year in college?
Yeah.
And I will say, actually, you know, I think this is like interview number 140 or something, you know, somewhere around there. You're one of a few, like I count them on one hand, that actually didn't have some, you know, pretty calamitous, tumultuous series of failures into their adult life before they were able to find that upswing. So, you know, props to you. I'm grateful for my struggles, but I won't pretend I wouldn't have accelerated the progress if I could have. So you got it.
But I can't, honestly, I can't say that there weren't. Like we went, I mean, not a lot of people know this, but we took our company public like 4 years after building it and ended up spending millions of dollars buying it back. Like a lot of people don't know that.
No, I didn't know that.
So it's like, it seriously is just, it is a battle no matter what you do. And I always love my buddy Trent Shelton. He said, you choose your hard. So being an entrepreneur is like, dude, we fought for our lives. There were times, dude, 2008 hit and we're like, dude, we have 600 employees. Like, do we lay people off? Like, what do? We just lost our biggest account, which was a massive events-based company. And we didn't have any new customers coming in. So guess what it did? It taught us how to be the very best direct marketers ever in the world. We said, okay, let's not lay anybody off. Let's figure out how to do our own lead gen.
Yeah.
Let's figure out how to do customer acquisition. So it was through the trials of doing the business, because you always have to be innovating. And so I would actually say it wasn't always lollipop and you know, gumballs or whatever during that, but that's what made us so freaking strong and so good. Because the company that we were working with, we weren't self-sufficient. We could do really good on sales and fulfillment and training.
Right.
We weren't the very best in the early days at customer acquisition. We were forced to do that so that we could keep everybody busy and without having to lay people off. So it is, but that made us so good at it. I mean, so good at it, because it was for us. We're like, hey, we're finally, and then that's what made it so that our company was so valuable, is because we weren't a two-legged stool. We actually became a three-legged stool, a four-legged stool, a five-legged stool, where all of a sudden we could actually optimize and scale what we had built to train millions of people. Yeah. So I think it was through some of the hardest times in business that we got really, really good at our core competency.
Well, it's, you know, you mentioned the three-legged stool, kind of the end-to-end solution. And I'm thinking the three legs, it's kind of like, okay, you had sales, you had fulfillment, and you were doing a lot of sales and fulfillment for, you know, other people with brands or other people with front-end offers, but then you added lead generation. So now you have demand creation, demand conversion, and then let's call it demand delivery or fulfillment. And that is, and by, you know, if anybody's listening, those are three things that you either have in-house as a business, or you pay/share the pie with to get. I mean, did the business, so 2008, that was crushing for a lot of people, but when it forced you to figure out the lead gen piece, did that detract from the value of the business, or did it increase the value of the business once you cracked that?
10 times increased it. And it really, really helped us to scale.
Yeah. Because now you're not having to share a huge piece of your revenue. I mean, those front end brands, I know who some of them were. They weren't guys that were going to be like, here, do this for me. I just want 1%. Yeah. They wanted more than 1%, right? Off the top.
Well, yeah. And you got really good at media. You got really good at marketing. You got really good at dude, what's the customer acquisition? I mean, keep in mind that this was all BG. This was all before Google. I'm talking 99, 2000, 2001, 2002. We were doing direct mail. We were doing radio. We were doing so those competencies still overlay. We still do a ton on radio with one of the companies, and it's phenomenal. And the numbers work. Direct mail still works.
Oh yeah.
And so if also just think about your customer acquisition, are you just doing Facebook all of a sudden, or pay-per-click or Google? What if they change? What do you do?
Yeah.
So you've got to be super strong in all areas of it. And I think that was really one of the things we said. We're going to really understand this stuff upside down, forwards, and backwards, so that we always have ever flowing. Like, you think about sustainability. I always, whenever I come in and I work with a company now, I'm like, is it sustainable? Like, I do a lot. I sit on some advisory boards, and we sit on, one advisory board. We're acquiring businesses, we're acquiring companies. And I always look at the entrepreneurs, and I was like, does this pass the bus test? Does this pass, if you were to get hit by a bus or you were to get ran over, will your business survive? If the answer is no, it's not a great investment.
Yeah.
So if you're an entrepreneur and you're thinking about this, how do you set your business up so it makes it so you no longer need to be there? That is when you really know that you're a true entrepreneur. And actually, not a true entrepreneur, but honestly, then you've moved to that level of a sustainable business leader. Mm-hmm. If you can get yourself to be on the advisory board, and if you can get yourself to the chairman of the board and build an amazing team that you can scale, that's what I do really well. When I work with companies and business, I help that leadership team. And that's what we do at High Performance Institute. We help everybody get really, really dialed in with how do I get my high performing culture, high performing teams, and high performing leadership. And that's where you have a real legit business. You have to look at yourself in the mirror and be like, dude, if I left, would my business survive? And everyone can get there. You just have to think, and you have to think about the strategy in which to do it.
So I feel like I just have to share a win with you that literally yesterday we announced to my company that I am officially stepping aside as CEO. I'm the founder, and I'm stepping aside from the day-to-day, and I'm the CVO, Chief Vision Officer, which is a glorified way of saying I get to go out to market and talk about my business, but I don't actually have to run it. And it's kind of what you're describing. It is, and it's not for lack of care or love. It's knowing
opposite of that, right?
Yeah, it's knowing my value in the market, right? I can go have conversations like this with you, and we have really smart people and really great systems that, it took us 2.5 years to get here, that will frankly execute the business better than I would when I'm running around trying to put my hands in everything, because in a way I almost care too much,
Well, and you think about it, like, you really, really great leaders understand that they want to hire on people and put them in the right places that are better than them.
Yes.
And that a really good leader is not one that cares about the credit. Mm-hmm. And that's why, you don't really hear about me much. I'm an operator. I really am an integrator, and I don't really care to get, the credit for something in such a way, although we've been hugely successful about building out some of the biggest brands you've heard of, and growing some really, really amazing people. Even today, some of the companies that I work with today are household brands and just crushing it. So you are doing the right thing. And here's what's exciting. Guess what else? You've got engagement of your people. Mm-hmm. People love to be able to have opportunity and grow. And a real business leader and a real entrepreneur, like, one of the things we love is creating jobs and creating opportunity for people. That's what's exciting. That's what actually gets me pumped up, is like, how many jobs can we create? How many opportunities can we create that'll put smoke up other people's chimneys? Mm-hmm. Because if you want to just be a solopreneur and just build a small, highly profitable business, but it sounds like, with some of the people listening on here, how do you do exactly what you've done, Jeff? That's amazing. Amazing. Hats off to you.
Well, I appreciate it. You used the term integrator, so I'm assuming that you have some, context with EOS. Mm-hmm. That 6 months ago, we began implementing our, a slightly varied version. As you evolve into an EOS implementation and you figure out what to tweak and adjust, but that was the first step towards, what culminated yesterday, right? It was like, okay, Jeff can literally take his hands off the wheel. and just go out in front of the car and start yelling, "Hey, we're coming," right? And it's a completely different dynamic, and it's much more my lane of strength. But anyway, yes, thank you. And I'm glad you address the audience. This is the dream. The dream is not to work 80 hours a week so that you don't have to work 40 hours a week at a job. That might be the means to the end, but that is not the end. The end is to get to, Randy, you're sitting on boards and you got your own businesses. I assume you have people that run, for me, I get to have this fancy C-level title that basically means I get to do, what I'm doing right now. Mm-hmm. That's the dream, and it is doable. And I think it's so cool. A lot of times these conversations on this show center around, okay, this is a business I started. This is the money I made. This is how my life changed as a result. But we're going one step further to, this was my sort of transition into really just a much more passive way of being an entrepreneur.
And you're going to watch how it's going to actually allow you. And here's the thing, which a lot of CEOs, a lot of entrepreneurs, and a lot of people that are in your position and even bigger, is if you look at the really, really good CEOs, they plan time for quiet time and for strategy. Mm-hmm. They plan time to seek clarity. Our number one high-performing habit that Brendan has spent, millions of dollars on research, and the number one habit for high-performing CEOs and high-performing entrepreneurs is they do spend time to seek clarity and have a really, really, really good direction of where they want to go. Now you can spend more time on strategy. It's like I always say, what's the difference between a $4 million company and a $40 million company and a $400 million company and a $4 billion company? I have friends that have done all of it. Mm-hmm. It's actually strategy, and it's clarity, and it's your ability. If you don't know where you're going as a leader, I promise you, neither does anybody else in your team know where they're going.
Yeah.
Real clarity and simplifying the process and less complication is what makes a $400 million company and a $4 billion company.
Hey, sorry for the interruption. I just wanted to let you know you can get a free copy of my book, The Millionaire Shortcut, which shows you the fastest way to become a millionaire in the new economy. And there's a special link just for this episode in the description. So thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the episode. I can totally resonate with the joy of teaching and sharing accumulated knowledge. It literally is my life's work at this point, is just do that until I'm too tired to do anything. I've got several decades left, I imagine. And it is the most rewarding thing I've ever done in my life, is just to take what I learned up to that point and turn around and start sharing while continuing to learn and sharing that too. So I totally get that. So I'm curious, because, I know I have a lot of young people in my audience too. So when they hear, hey, wait, this guy started a business in college, and that business, that's the one that ended up going public later, right? So yeah, this guy started this, big business when he was still in college. How did you get that started? First of all, how did you have the vision for it to go, oh, there's an opportunity that I should invest as much time and energy into as it's going to take, even while I'm still in college? And then how did you actually juggle and balance that investment of time and energy, given that you were still in college?
It's a really good question. I have a couple of, I actually teach the entrepreneur class at the EVU right now, and I love it. Oh, yeah. I'm right there with them. And it's the innovation class. It's it's really, really just high achieving students, and all of them are wanting to start their own business. And it literally, you just have to think about your business model and your economic engine. And are you passionate about it? For me, I didn't want to, and I still don't want to. I love coaching and training people. I love working with companies and CEOs to help them reach higher levels of thought. So I'd always wanted to build my own coaching and training company. And we actually were one of the largest. And I can think about it. My dad was, I dropped this in my office. This is right here. This right here is one of my best memorabilia pieces. My dad gave me this for Christmas, and he was my high school football coach for 32 years. I mean, he was a high school football coach for 32 years, but he was my high school football coach as well. And it's like, I always wanted to build something up that made an impact and made a difference. And so when I was a junior in college, like, I can't think of anything else I'd want to do.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking about that and starting your own business, make sure that it aligns with your Polaris point. And what I'm talking about, if you want to create the life you really want, that it has to be, 1, earn the kind of money you want, 2, drive happiness, and 3, sustainable over long periods of time. So in our book, Prosper, we talk about an attorney that for 20 years was making millions of dollars a year, crushing it, and just doing amazing financially, but at the cost of his family. Mm-hmm. And that for me is not happiness. For me, generating all kinds of money and wealth, but at the destruction of the relationships that are most important to you, is what I always in my heart never wanted to subscribe to. It's also not sustainable. And so you have to think about those 3 things: money plus happiness plus sustainability are what's going to equal the kind of life you want to create. And so when you're planning out what kind of business you want, what do you love? And I know it seems so Pollyannish, if you will. It's like, do what you love. I mean, Steve Jobs said that. But there is a process that we have in our book on how to do that. You got to stay in your prosper zone, start with earn from your core competence, what you do the very, very best in the world. And so really design it around what you love. If you're super, super wicked good at marketing and love customer acquisition, then be the best in the world at it, and you'll grow a massive agency, or you'll be highly successful, and you'll continue to learn and go deep with that. Don't just snorkel with your career, scuba dive with the things that you love. Don't just snorkel on things. Get really, really competent at things you love, and you'll always have a job, or you'll be an amazing, amazing entrepreneur. And it's not that you always have to be an entrepreneur. And I want to be clear on this. You can actually drive the same satisfaction, be an entrepreneur. And that means working in a company, helping them grow and scale. I don't say everybody's set to be an entrepreneur, but to be an entrepreneur, yes, everybody should be an entrepreneur, hands down, because you'll become invaluable in those companies. And so I think, for us, I did what I loved, and I built what I loved, and I've just been so fortunate to be able to do that. So that I hope that helps.
Yeah, it does. And I have an entrepreneurial company, and it's funny. We were joking on a meeting the other day because we teach people to become entrepreneurs. And somebody asked on a call the other day at one of our group meetings, just kind of like, let's call out the elephant in the room. We basically just arrived at around 100 employees in our company. And it's like, Jeff, you have 100 employees, and yet what you sell is training on how to not be an employee. So how do you reconcile that with all these employees that you're basically saying, well, there's, greener grass on the other side? And I'm like, notice our mission statement. We don't sell education on entrepreneurship. We sell entrepreneurial education. And being entrepreneurial is a way to be. It's not a thing to do or a thing that you do. Doesn't mean you have to start your own business. And what I love about our company, one of the reasons we've been, we scaled like gangbusters in the last year and a half, is because we have a very, very entrepreneurial culture, even amongst our employees. As an employer, the most valuable people on your team are going to be the most entrepreneurial people. Clearly they're not business owners, they're employees. They're no less valuable. And that's the term you described, entrepreneurship.
Well, and you think about it. We trained, same. We loved it when one of our guys started doing something that was highly successful. We celebrated in that, but we actually had people that were very, very mission driven and entrepreneurial on what we did. One of the guys that was our customer service rep became our chief marketing officer. Mm-hmm. And that's what he loved. The other guy came fresh off an LDS mission and became the president of all of our coaching, and then the president of the company. And he's still one of our best friends today. So they really thrived within and became very entrepreneurial. So, It is, if you have a very good mission driven company and you're able to do that and have high performing teams and help them accomplish things that they want to do, then that's also a huge win. And for me, that's actually being an entrepreneur. If you want to exceed, if you're not happy in your job, then figure out, this is a really big strategy right here for anybody that's working for somebody, is like, never go to your manager and never go to your CEO with a complaint. Always go to him with a solution on how to make things better.
Yeah.
If you just keep saying like, hey, this sucks, hey, this sucks, you know, my leads suck, my job, I mean, this sucks, my manager sucks. If that's true, you probably suck. So you got to have to think about, how do I come with, if I'm solution oriented, that's what I'm saying is being entrepreneurial. Actually, if I grow this company and I grow the revenue from X to X, maybe you'll give me let's strategize and give me a percentage of growth. I would do that all day long with guys. The hardest thing in the world is to teach people how to think.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you can get your employees and figure out a compensation that helps them be entrepreneurial and be an entrepreneur within inside the company, then that is awesome.
Yeah. And I think it's really important because, you know, there are so many people out there that have a very binary view of, I'm in a job and there's either I don't love it at all, or there's something about it that frustrates me. And the binary opposite is, thus I need to quit. I need to quit, you know, being an employee altogether. I need to go start a business. There is a huge middle ground that, look, if you're married and you're still paying off your student loans and you just bought a brand new house and you got your second kid on the way, it might not be the time to just quit your job and go bet it all on a business. But that doesn't mean that your entrepreneurial itch can never be scratched, or that you're just on hold until your kids go off to college or something. No, like in the moment now, like you said, if you're start becoming entrepreneurial and create value inside your company, inside your role, there should be remuneration for that, increased opportunity, increased compensation, something. And if there's not, it's not that you need to quit everything and go start a business. It might just be you need to find a new job in your field at a more entrepreneurial company with a different culture.
100%.
So anyway, I love that we're talking about this, because that is one of my, as an education reformer, as an entrepreneurial evangelist is kind of the term I use. That binary fallacy is very frustrating for me, that like, I can only be entrepreneurial if I have absolute autonomy and I'm not part of any other system, because very often that's a hard road. You can end up as a solopreneur working 80 hours a week, because frankly, there were probably a lot of, and there were a lot of things you could have learned in the company about how companies and businesses operate.
100%.
Even if you want to go start a business, if you're inside of a well-run company, take 5 years and learn everything about how that company operates, the meeting rhythms, the communication policies, the human resources policies. How do they hire talent? How do they, you know, implement corrective action with underperforming people? Like, there's so many things. How is their financing set up? How are they able to take credit cards and get merchant processing? Like, there's so many things about running a business that you don't know unless you start looking for it.
Do 100%, and do it with a very pure heart, that you want to increase your skill set and you want to help that company grow. And I mean, if you're getting paid and you're getting compensated, then drive revenue, drive strategy, drive innovation within that company, and you'll be running the company. And then all of a sudden the CEO is going to be like, dude, I'm going to move to the chairman of the board. You're now the president. You're amazing. Mm-hmm. That's maybe a path for a lot of people. And that's what I'm talking about. The entrepreneurship is, don't sit there and complain about how everything sucks or is broken. Go fix it.
Yeah.
If you're getting compensated and you're getting, like, go be a rainmaker and make it happen. And that could scratch your itch as well and actually put you in a really good position. So that's what I call the difference between entrepreneurship and intrapreneurship. Is if you are an innovator and if you're always thinking, you will never, ever, ever go without.
And there might be a lot more leverage in it too, because you're able to add value or margin or incremental, you know, improvement to an existing base of revenue that you don't have to go create for yourself. Unlike if you quit your job and go start a business, on day one, you start with zero, and it doesn't matter how good you are, because 0 times anything is 0, right? Like to say, oh, I'm a part of a company that does $50 million a year, and I think I can make this slight adjustment, and I'm going to have a conversation about how to participate in that improvement. That's a lot more exciting than I'm just going to start over, right? And listen, Randy, I feel like we could talk all day, and given that you're in Utah, I fully plan to meet up with you in person sometime and continue this conversation. But I know that right now you actually have a hard stop coming up, and I want to respect your time. Can you please share with the audience how they can go get more of this conversation from you, how they can learn about your book, your professional services, whatever you'd like to share?
Yeah, I mean, you can just go to randygarn.com, or you can also if you want to get involved in High Performance Institute with what we train on how to be as productive as you possibly can, you can go to highperformanceinstitute.com.
Wonderful. And you're on social media as well, correct?
Yeah.
If you loved that episode, then you're definitely going to love this one. Check it out.
Hope is not a business plan. And I always tell people, for all you sport fans out there, I said, you know what? You might win a game here and there on a Hail Mary. You'll never win a season on Hail Marys. Be practical and don't bet the farm.